Hi guys, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. This week I'm turning my attention to LDOs. So without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise is a Hanak H333 barbless hook at size 10, and it's finished on a fine wire in black nickel. Now it does say check nymph on the hook, but the wire is fine enough that it makes a great dry fly hook, but sturdy enough in case you do manage to hook into a really good fish. The thread I'm going to be using today is from Simplify. It's the Nano Silk 12/0 and it's in olive. So first thing, as always with the Nano Silks, we're going to get a little bit of super glue onto the shank just to help us keep that thread where it's supposed to be and not get any body rotation in our fly once it's finished. So get a few wraps on there, and I'm going to take away my rat's tail at this point. Now for the tail of this fly I'm going to use 2 strands of moose mane. Now moose mane I like because it's robustness. It's quite a robust material and it will last 2 or 3 fish. So I've already picked out a couple of strands and I've married up the tips. They've just become unmarried, so I'm just going to pull that through. I'm going to lay it on. Don't want the tail to protrude too far. This is an emerging pattern, so when the LDOs are starting to hatch on the river, just get rid of this. You'll start to see a few emerging off, and this is an ideal pattern for that time when they're just starting. So I'm sure most of you are aware, or you may not be aware, of the life cycle of the LDO. It starts its life as a nymph, and then when conditions are favourable it swims to the surface and starts to emerge as an adult fly, and this is to represent that emergence stage. So I've caught that in now. I don't know what's going on with that. I've caught that in as well. Just going to tidy this up with my scissors a little bit. Next, I want to catch in some perfect, what's this called? Perfect quills. Now, basically, this is like a see-through quill. And sometimes, depending on what mood I'm in, I'll tie this on because I think it looks really smart. And other times I just don't think it's required. But as always, fly tying is not the same hobby as fly fishing. So if you want to tie a really nice fly, I suggest you get some of these. If you want to catch fish, the thread is more than enough. So I've pulled it off and I've taken away the thinnest part at the bottom here, and I'm just going to catch that in. Just at the bottom. Now, at this point I'm going to speed the video up because this does take a little bit of time. And what I'm doing is I'm going to build a taper into my body. Okay, so I've got the taper I require. Next thing I'm going to do is just bring my thread to the front, get a few extra turns in it, and then I can bring my rib up the body. Now I've done all sorts of ways with this, touch and turns, but what I find is you get a slightly better effect if you're not quite getting touch and turns on the body. And it might seem an extravagance because a lot of this is covered by the legs and the thorax area, the wing. It does cloak it, but if you look at the fly from underneath, and that's the trout's view, it's really effective. It just really looks the part. So bring that up to the top, and my threads come to meet my rib. I've caught that in, and I'm just going to take that away. And that looks really nice. Now, if you're a belts and braces guy, you could put some UV resin over the top of that. I'm not going to bother. It looks good as it is. Next thing I want to do is create my legs. So I'm going to invert my vise. And what I'm using for legs is some snowshoe. Now, I'm a huge fan of snowshoe. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I just think it looks really buggy. So I'm just going to take a little bit from the cape, just off camera here. I'm going to use my scissors to just take a little bit away. Now, you can see it's got like a translucent effect on the fly. I don't want as many as I've got there, but I'm going to come in and just catch that in like a beard, if you like. Once I've got it into place, I can come in with my scissors and, excuse my fingers, just trim away the excess. It does make great legs. Also, it's highly floatant. Snowshoe is a really buoyant material, and it will help to keep your fly afloat. I often use it as a wing on some patterns. Now, the next thing then is I'm going to use some olive CDC. This is from Troutline, and this is going to be what the footprint that the trout see. So I'll just get that tips all lined up. I've got 3 plumes here. It's quite a bushy CDC I've got here. I'm going to grab that in. I don't want it to progress past the body. I'll dress that up. That looks about right to me. Just in line with the bend of the hook. Then I can come over and get good hard wraps down on that. Then come in with the scissors and just take away the excess. We'll have a little tidy up at the front here. Really clamp down hard on at this stage, and that's looking not too shabby, even if I do say so myself. Okay, so the wing, the overwing, what I've got here is some deer hair. It has been dyed a very light olive, and just off camera here I'm going to take probably about a centimetre's worth in my hand. Now, I've just cut that away, and you can see there's a lot of gunk in and about the bottom of the deer hair. It's probably a little bit more than I need, but I can sort that out in a minute. I'm going to come in with my comb and just get rid of that. If you don't get rid of the gunk in deer hair, what happens is it just all sticks and it fails to stack properly when you put it in the stacker, which I have just here. I'm going to slip that in. There we go. And then I'll just give it a few bangs. I prefer to do it on the vise, but as you can see the fly moves about. Then when I take it out, hopefully all the tips are aligned, which is ideal. I'll grab them with my left hand. Now, I'm going to swap it over, because what I want to do is dress it up and get the right length, and I want it to be slightly longer than my CDC here. So that looks about right. So I'm going to change it back to my other hand. Now, over my waste bin, I'm going to use my fingers as a guide and cut that. Try and get it as straight as possible. Then when I dress it up again, I'm going to get a loop just over the top, and you'll see it starting to splay. Now, I am doing this very gently. It's very difficult to know the kind of pressure that I'm applying, but I am being very gentle. I'm coming through the cut ends initially, and as I get more confident that I've caught it into place, I'm going to let it go and have a look just to make sure I've got that length right, and that's bang on. So next thing I want to do before I carry on is I'm going to just tweak that forward. Now it's hard to see what's going on, but I'm breaking the deer here, and what this does is it makes the deer hair lie flatter on your pattern. I think I just pulled one of my legs out there, which is quite annoying, but not to worry. For the purpose of the demonstration, we'll just keep going. So I've got that in place, it's sitting how I want it, and I'm now going to really come down hard on them cut ends. Nothing worse than picking a fly up and you pull the wing out while you're trying to tie the hook on. It can be quite frustrating. So that's looking okay, other than the fact it's only got one tail now. Okay, so we're getting near the end game, and back to the snowshoe. Now the snowshoe is very versatile, so inside there you can see there's lots of like really buoyant dubbing material, and I like to pick out a little bit of that. You don't need a lot. And then what I'm going to do is grab my dubbing needle and split the thread. Oh, just popped out there. Try again. Got it that time. Then I can come in with my little bit of snowshoe, and I'm going to spin that up. Now while that's spinning away there, it's getting a bit out of hand, just keep it spinning. I'm going to use a little touch of super glue onto the head of the fly now. Now this does two things. It helps to keep the dubbing where I want it, and you can also just finish the fly with a whip finish and you won't need to add any varnish. So I'm going to start at the back of the fly and just come forward and through over that head like so, and then with my whip finish tool I can come in and finish that off. Now I like to just finish up by dragging out some of the fibres of the snowshoe. Like so, and there's the finished fly. Now obviously I've only got one strand as a tail, but that'll still be good enough to go in my box.